'Cause you're a believer, a dreamer, taking it higher, driven by fire.
Right, hi everybody. I'm here today. Fortunate to be joined by Detective Chief Superintendent Liz Mead, who's taken time out of her busy schedule for Bedfordshire Police Headquarters to speak to us. So, hi Liz. Am I right to call you Liz?
Yeah, absolutely. Please do. Yeah, that's great. And I'm not actually at Bed's police headquarters because, like most of the country, where possible, we're working from home. So you've got me at home today.
Excellent, excellent. So, first of all, a little bit about yourself then. So, where's home?
So I'm middle of the county. I've always lived in Bedfordshire. I was born in Luton, but I did go to school in Bedford up till I was 13. So always been Bedfordshire and always been with Bedfordshire Police. And I'm just coming up for my 30 years with Bedfordshire. So quite a strange time ahead.
Excellent. Yeah, some challenges, that's for sure. So first of all, what do you love about Bedford? 'Cause obviously, you're well experienced in the town. So.
I actually think Bedfordshire as a whole and Bedford, it's a bit of a hidden gem, really. Very easily accessible to London on the train and the great networks that we've got around the country, really. So it's a great place to live, as there's so many places also that people don't know about within the county. I think, it's got quite a lot of history. It's very culturally diverse, which I think is always really great for any town. It's quite picturesque. I mean, the embankment, the river, when you can, such a great place to walk, and in different times, obviously great to see the people rowing on there, just the wildlife, really. And I also think that there's been some great things, improvements made to the river, opening it up so that it's much more of a social place as well to go. So behind that magistrates court has changed beyond recognition from the 30 years ago when I went in there and took my oath at Bedford Magistrates Courts all those years ago.
Oh, excellent. So, what about the people of Bedford? Obviously, you have a lot of dealings with them.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, I've worked with them in terms of many different perspectives, I think it's fair to say. So I've worked on many investigations that have been in Bedford. And, the majority of people of Bedford have the same views that policing has. We want to make Bedford and Bedfordshire a safe place to live, to work and to visit. And I think most probably it's a really good time at the moment to thank the residents of Bedford and Bedfordshire for their really good compliance around the social distancing, around staying at home. I think that we've taken very much an approach in Bedfordshire around that education piece, around engaging with the public and encouraging them to kind of follow the government guidelines at the moment. We have had to do very little enforcement, and we really hope that we continue to have the public of Bedford and Bedfordshire on our sides, because actually we all need to do this. There is we have to protect the NHS and we have to save lives, and really this is a public health crisis, and that's why we as policing are having to do those bits, but wherever possible we want to try and encourage.
So you're finding the people are sort of responding well to the restrictions. It is a bind for everybody, isn't it? But at the end of the day, the virus doesn't select on people's sex, gender, creed, colour, whatever, does it? It's indiscriminate.
Absolutely indiscriminate. And I think that we have to all do this. We're all in it together in terms of staying at home. I've had I've been very fortunate. I've worked with a lot of our NHS colleagues across the county over the last 30 years, and in particular the A&E departments across Bedford and Luton, and the pleas that are coming from those consultants, those doctors, those nurses of staying home, and when you personally know those individuals, you really feel for them, and you just want to make sure that you're doing your bit to get that message out to everybody to stay home. So kind of very much gone on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on lots of places about trying to get different ways for the message to get out. And the other, certainly within Bedfordshire, is, in terms of our criminals that decide to still operate in these challenging times, because sadly there are people that will take advantage of situations like this. We are going to make sure they are also, fined or charged with the regulations around essential travel, because going up to burgle, going to criminally damage something, going to steal, or going to do your drugs, etc., is not essential travel.
No,
and
no, absolutely
you will find
not.
yourself on the other side of that, the wrong side of the regulations, as well as the law in terms of those things. I think that's quite an important thing, that actually people need to make sure that they're adhering to the regulations. But as a police service, we've still got the day-to-day business that's still going on, and I think our colleagues are, my colleagues, my frontline colleagues in particular, uniformed, and my detective colleagues, who are still, daily going out there, meeting the public that are out and about, but also having to deal with what's going on out there. And unfortunately, some of the criminality is not stopping because of the virus.
No, that's it. Like I said, there's always going to be people who want to exploit it in whatever way they can. Unfortunately, it's just catching hold of them, really, isn't it? So there you go. So what do you think's changed about Bedford over the years since you've been?
What's it changed? I think that we have increased in size, haven't we? I think we've come also a much more diverse population, which is really positive for the town. And I think also the way that the town has gradually, we've got a lot more housing developments surrounding the town, and I think it's become quite a lot younger town in terms of the population. I think it has the it's quite vibrant at times. We're very fortunate in terms of Bedford with the different markets that we have, and also, as I said earlier, in terms of opening up the river, I think that's made a real improvement, and some of the sort of nice places to go alongside the river, for example. So I think the town has really kind of regenerated a lot, especially around the castle ground, around that area, and so it looks so much brighter, I think, than it used to. It's really, I think it's a nice town to be around. It's just we've got to try and keep that positive vibe going in Bedford, so that it is a place where people want to come and visit, and then hopefully they'll like it and they'll want to come and live here.
Absolutely, excellent. So, what's the one thing you would change if you had the power of sort of to wave a wand as such and say, right, I want to change that? What's the one thing you would change? But then also on the back end, what's the one thing you think is really represents Bedford and is something that we should keep no matter what?
Certainly the things that we should keep, I think, is the people. Buildings, rivers, etc. are one thing, but it's the people that make a town and the people that make a place, and people make somewhere home. And I think that that's really important for Bedford and Bedfordshire. As I said, that real cultural mix that we have, I think, is so important. We have so many different festivals, holidays and things that we celebrate in Bedford, and it's a real community feel. So I certainly would never want Bedford to lose that, and then going back, I suppose, the history that Bedford has got. So definitely a positive place to be, and I wouldn't want it to change in that way. What would I do at the strike of a wand? I suppose, sort of coming from a policing perspective, I would like to be able to give there zero crime. Of course, I would. But I suppose, no crime at all, and those things that really bother people on a day-to-day basis, we'd like to be able to stop those. But we have limited resources, so I don't have a magic wand. But I do know that, certainly our community teams, our response officers, and the detectives all want to make it a safe place for everyone to live.
Excellent. That's great. Thank you very much. So, give me sort of one word that you would probably best describe the people of Bedford.
I think compassionate, I would say. I think they're a real compassionate group and a town in general. Whenever there is a crisis, whenever anything's happening, always first to kind of volunteer and do things. And I think we're seeing that very much now around the number of people that have volunteered to work and sign up for the NHS, for example. In terms of in policing, we've got our citizens in policing department that look after our specials and our volunteers. And I'm always in awe of the number of people that want to come and support our county and our police force in making Bedford a safe place to try and contribute and volunteer.
Okay, good. So, and then finally, do you know any interesting facts about Bedford that not many people would know?
Oh, I don't know about. I worked at Bedford Prison for a while as a police officer quite a few years ago. And I was always really surprised when I said to people I worked at Bedford Prison, and they go, I didn't know Bedford had a prison. And I always found that quite bizarre, because it's this really big building in the middle of town with a huge wall around it. But you'd be surprised how many people just kind of walk past or drive past it without kind of giving it a second thought about what's there and the community that's in Bedford Prison. So I always think that's quite an interesting fact about how Bedford Prison was was on the outskirts at one point, and then it's now become very central to the town, really. And I did enjoy my time working there. So I suppose if there's any people I remember, colleagues from there, and I know that the prison service are also having difficult times at the moment through dealing with the COVID. So if there's any of my colleagues that I used to work with there, it was most probably 20 years ago. I kind of worked at Bedford Prison, but I know that there are a lot of colleagues that are still there, and it was good time in my career working there in terms addressing what was going on and being that police link with the prison. So that's most probably, I think, Bedford Prison is always quite a bit of a different part about Bedford, and then it kind of then links on, I suppose, Bedford Prison to the fact that John Bunyan being imprisoned in Bedford, and then John Howard being born in Bedford and part of the Howard Penal League reform and stuff. So I think it has got quite an element of that justice side in Bedford. So they're not necessarily facts that people don't know, but they're always kind of interesting to me.
Yeah, no, that's it. I always say, when I first came to Bedford, which was 25 years ago, I always remember thinking of Bedford Prison. I always thought it was the lodge as you're going out towards Kempston, but just because of the shape of the building, it's quite disconcerting. So and also another interesting thing is the rugby ground used to be a cricket ground.
Oh,
I don't know if
okay.
you knew that. That's why the pub opposite, which is now closed up, is called the Cricketers.
Well, I remember the Cricketers pub. I was talking of cricket, so in terms of family wise, my son's nearly 25 now, but he used to play cricket for Bedfordshire, and I used to play tennis for Bedfordshire, so that's our kind of sporting part around Bedfordshire. But I don't do rugby, so maybe that's not the right thing to say about Bedford. You're more likely to catch me on the terraces at Luton Town than you are at rugby. I just never quite understood it as a game, and I know that my colleagues will go, many of them are massive rugby fans, but no, it's always football for me. So
no, that's it. I'm a bit of the same. I'm a sort of a football, but I do like rugby, particularly international rugby. So there you go. But it's not about me; it's all about you. So.
Okay, I'm going to say we just want our sport back, don't we? Once everything kind of gradually returns to normal, it's life's very different without sport.
Absolutely, this weekends are empty, aren't they? It's just like tiddlywinks.
But all those indoor sports, so they're just not quite the same. So we just have to find out what happens with the Champions League and all of those other big sporting events. But that just they pales into insignificance in terms of the rest of the thing that's going on around the world. And we'll all get back to that one point at one time, but we're just wishing those that are poorly at the moment and those that are helping out with everything all the best. And just I think from everybody just a really big thank you, especially to our NHS workers, to my colleagues in policing, the emergency workers, all of those people that are making food, delivering food, selling food, and medical supplies and all the essentials, and everyone that's just keeping the country going, I think, in terms of what's going on. And I think that kind of links through to Bedford being a great place, because everyone is doing their bit wherever they can, and together we will all get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. So finally, you know, given the circumstances we're all living under at the moment, what's the one sort of plea that we could put out to the people of Bedford?
It's going to be what everyone's saying.
Yeah.
You know, stay home, protect the NHS, because you will save lives, and just make sure that you kind of stick with the regulations. These are what the government need us to do at the moment, and we really do need to do that for all those really, you know, for those people that are working in the NHS at the moment. They need us just to stay home and sit down while they absolutely work the ridiculous hours that they're doing. So I think it's the least that everyone can do to support those absolute heroes at the moment. Yeah.
Agreed. I mean, at the end of the day, it is a war. They are the soldiers, and we are there to support them in whatever way we can, you know. So yeah, that's it. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Liz. You know, on behalf of everyone, you know, in Bedford, I'd like to thank you and all your colleagues for all the work you're doing. I'm sure you're working away in the background like so many, trying to help and get us over the line and get us back to some sort of normality. So, yeah, thank you very much for your time today, and we really do appreciate, and you know, the work that you're doing. So, all right.
That's okay. No problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you.